The other spot that we had was we would not have made it through COVID. But it's like, it's not about like hoping that a good thing's going to happen to us. It's really like getting every other single possible thing in the right places so that if opportunity comes in some way that you're just ready to snap. And I've got an amazing team that's just always ready to strike. They're just vipers. They're just like, let's just be really good about disciplining ourselves. Let's prepare. And then let's go a little wild when something comes up. So we can just go with confidence and say, like, we're all in.
I love it. So here's a question for you. So you opened in 2017, and obviously
we opened here. This one is 2019.
2019.
Yeah,
Excuse me, 2019. So 19, but you had spent time working in kind of the natural, or I guess organic wine scene, dating back to 2009. What we've seen over the last 2 years is this huge boom, not only in like people learning about, the funkier wines, but also starting to pursue them. Like, they're running out off of proofs wine and spirits wines, provisions. Has that been was it already buzzing in places like LA and New York to the point where these bars were, fully like, we can just be a natural wine bar? Because it seems like it just hit Denver around COVID, 2020, 2021. How's that been? Is it a weird shift seeing like it's taking a little longer for things to get to Denver? Fashion, now natural wine, stuff like that?
I think that happens a lot, but the coasts are always going to get the stuff first. They're always going to get the boats in and find out, like, shape the identity a little bit more quickly, and they're more compact, dense areas where those things kind of flame up quicker, and they have solid groups, right? So in LA and New York, you'd have natural wine folks that were really, really, really into just natural wines, right? They would just say, like, it was only a conversation about only natural wines. What I like about what Denver does, sometimes it does it really well, sometimes it does it really poorly, is the synthesis, right? It's like, we never made natural wines exclusively. I'm never saying, like, you should never have a Dorito. You should only eat artisanal corn biscuits, No, I need a Dorito sometimes, right? Like,
Cool Ranch me on a Thursday if I have
right?
to,
Like,
if it tickles your fancy.
Right. But it's like, I want everyone to be able to make their own choices. I don't think that this is the be-all, end-all. I just want to show these I just want to, like, help them because they've done so much work and provide a space for them. That's much more important to me, right? So I think that the natural wine scene on the coast was definitely a thing. I think it was bubbling up in a good place. There's a lot of places that were serving good wines already, like I mentioned. Mm-hmm. So I think it just needed kind of a crystallization, and I felt like this came together right at the right time, and we were able to do this style of bar that was a little bit closer to those kinds of wine bars than, wine quotes all over the walls and scented candles and stuff like that.
Live, laugh, vino.
Right, exactly. I'm just not even going to go into it. I'm not going to go there. But it hit at the right time, and I think it just, a lot of things came together at once, and everyone was ready for the vibe.
So since we've got like a wine nerd here, we might as well ask some tough questions.
I don't have tough questions. I already used my 2 words.
See, I told you.
I'll bring it.
Told you.
I have some casual questions.
But so one of the funny things is we talk about how,
this is fucking good, by the way.
Recently, like, natural wines made big, or at least big on the scene here.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously this practice has been around for centuries.
Yeah.
I mean, why is it just now kind of getting noticed and recognized?
For sure.
You should have said legs because of the double play on words. Why is it just now getting legs?
Yeah.
I mean, we could re-edit. I mean, we can go back.
We're not that good at that. No.
If it doesn't come out the first time,
no.
Great.
I didn't write down we had a funny joke and we missed it.
Like, let's go.
Yeah. Like, let's run that back.
No, you're absolutely right, man. That's a good point. Like, there was... I talk a lot about this. We teach a class called Natural Wine 101. We talk actually a lot about this, where it's like farmers used to just be farmers, and then the world wars kind of helped with this chemical advancement that allowed for crops to become much more efficient because of chemicals and pesticides and all these things. And so we became farmers, but also some strange version of a chemist, and Americans really grabbed onto that, and the industry became such a bigger force in this country. But then the backlash, right, was people started sometimes getting sick or not trusting that we were just growing these things from chemicals. So long and short of it is, like, there was kind of a resurgence in the 80s, and then people like Gary Vaynerchuk broke open the ideas about what it is. I'm going to bring it back to that because it's
That's a good circle
kind of
back.
true. Like, he needed to be in the water back then so that our ideas started changing, so that by 2019, a person that was just walking down the alley and sees that natural wines are there is intrigued enough to go in and not go, I don't know what those words mean, and I don't want to find out, right? His ability, and not his alone, like the group of people coupled with natural wine fairs, natural wine weeks, coupled with Instagram and how much social media has forwarded what wine can be and why it's like, you wouldn't see a label like this Fruit Stereo label 20 years ago, and that's when it was starting to crack open too, right? So all those things together really like democratized this ability and empowered everyone. Like, I really think that wine was the thing that everyone was scared of. Everyone could walk into a cocktail bar and go like, I know my cocktail, I know what it's supposed to look like. With beer, especially here, everyone's like, I see the lacing, I know what kind of hops you use, I get this, I am proficient. They'd walk into a wine place and go like, I'm not a wine snob, I don't know. There's so much fear. So anything that could take away the fear was exactly right, and it just happened to like take all those things together at the same time, especially here like a couple of years ago.
So how do you like actually, when you've talked to a lot of winemakers and stuff, and how do like natural winemakers as opposed to, what would you even classify the other group of winemakers?
Commercial is an easy way to say it if you want to, but whatever.
How do they view one another? Because I feel like that could be dicey.
That's what I was trying to get at earlier. Like, is there an internal struggle or battle? Like we talked with Nicolo from France about it and how like the tides have changed in France. But that's a great question.
And also, are there some that may do both methods?
Yeah, I mean, because of how much the industry's changed in the last 20 years, the answer is yes in a way that it hasn't ever been before. And what I'll say is, most often, if you're going to see someone with that duality that's doing both things, what we're seeing now is like a pretty big house or a big winery putting together like a natural division or doing a line that is biodynamic or one that is like greener, you know. So interestingly, like using the language of this really kind of rugged, irreverent style of being and saying like, well, we're losing market shares, let's put together a natural division, right? Which isn't bad, right? The more organic wine there is in the world, the better we all are. The rising tide of natural wine is a good thing. But I wouldn't think that there's really any natural, quote-unquote, natural winemakers that are doing it commercially because it's more philosophical. It's a little bit less strategic and more like, I want to do as little as possible. I want to chaperone the grapes from the vine into the bottle into the guest and not interrupt that flow that nature has determined. It's not strategic in a like market like numbers and demographics and stuff like that. It's just like honoring through honesty and discipline what nature kind of has provided for us and makes us feel funny in our heads, you know?
So, and we probably should have asked this earlier though. But
No, we can do it whenever.
To be a natural wine, the wine has to.
Right. So this is where it gets tricky, right? This is why it is a little bit of why it's both good because it's so amorphous that everyone can grab onto it, and also difficult because you can't grab onto it. There is no like legal definition of natural wines, right? And so, in fact, we don't really use the term natural. I don't call this a natural wine bar. I kind of skirt it a little bit and I say we're an honest wine bar because, to me, natural means one thing or a lot of things, but it means something very different to different people coming in. Like, some people coming in are expecting to find a very cloudy wine or cider like this Fruit Stereo, and they're thinking that that's what natural wine is. Some people are walking in off the street looking for natural wine philosophically, not in appearance, and they're going to see this and go like, that's not what I want. That's not what I came here for. So
yeah, that looks like a hazy IPA, good
right,
sir.
exactly, right? So there isn't a specific thing, but generally the easiest things that you kind of tie to natural winemaking is using natural yeasts. So using the yeasts that are naturally found on the grapes themselves versus buying a particular strain of yeast to get certain flavors and textures out of it That's one thing.
So is that like adding like terpenes for our cannabis listeners, like adding something to kind of like boost either flavor or the cooking process that makes it taste a little different?
For sure. Okay. Exactly. And so you can find ones. See,
I told you I'd come up with another one. I just need about 15 minutes to relax, rest, and then I'm recharged and ready to go for round 2.
That was amazing, man.
Thank
Can't
you.
wait for what round 3 is. I'm just every corner I peek around, I'm just like, what has Kip got? I don't know.
Thank you.
But yes, you nailed it, man. Like it's very similar, where you can choose one. It takes the guesswork out of when it's going to ferment. It takes the guesswork out of a lot of like the one place that can be a little tricky in wine. The one place. I'm sure a winemaker listening is like, yeah, that's the one place things could go wrong. But it makes it a lot easier, and it makes it very specific to their needs, right? So I think when I say a natural winemaker, that's one of the best ways I can say this winemaker is trusting the process that nature kind of put together. This is someone who's going to use discipline and observation and curiosity to find out where the wine wants to take them versus taking what they got in the field and then making what they want out of it. That, to me, is the biggest difference, right? Natural winemakers are trying to highlight where it came from and what happened to get it there. Commercial winemakers are taking what they got and trying to get it to where they want it to go.
Gotcha. And so
that was a good question.
Yeah, and with that, like you were talking about, like these funky labels on some of the bottles and
Yeah.
stuff. So, like, if I was like,
I think it's a
if I was a natural winemaker in France,
Yeah.
do I have to like abide by the label?
The funky label crew or something?
Yeah. Like,
Or you mean like the government one?
Yeah, like the government ones.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what's another interesting...
Please elaborate on what is the foreign law on labels, Chris? Or Troy, anybody, because I don't have a fucking clue, and I'm sure our listeners don't.
Well, like in France, they have specific labeling instructions for appellations, things like that. Like
You can't make cool drawings with a
and
joint in your mouth.
What's the committee in France? Like, because I know in Italy you have DOC and DOCG.
Right, and so these determine, like, on your label you have to put the region that it's from, and that region that it's from most often has certain grapes that you can use, certain alcoholic percentages. It's going to be all these things. So I'll say the answer to the question is yes and no. The yes is that there's still a lot of winemakers that are finding ways of putting the right things on there and still making it fun, or doing a classic style. But the other group is awesome, and they are awesome again for their kind of honesty with themselves and like going against the rules just to make sure that they get that the grape does what it should do. A lot of them will declassify the wines. So if they could say that it's, if it's a DOGC of Chianti, but they like added a couple other grapes to it, or they did something a little bit differently and wouldn't pass that board, they're not even going to try. They'll declassify it and they'll just say, listen, I'm going to hope that everyone that drinks this understands that I could have called this Chianti and probably just gotten more money off of the shelves for that. But I'm just going to call it table wine, and the people who know me know what this one is and that it's awesome. So yes and no. Like some of them are like, no, I'm not even going to try. I don't care.
So there is a vague like blanket you can get under to stay warm, but it's not going to be as like dialed in. And so then it's kind of banking on, does your producer have not necessarily a name brand, but, a recognizable,
right. Or
I guess reputation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, or you have the people that are selling it to the end mouth that know it and trust it and tell you about it. That's the big link right there, right? That's the game that we're playing. When that Montevino is playing, that Pearl is playing, that Proof is playing, like all these, and Sunday Vinyl and RiNo.
That's
the Yacht Club
Sunday
and all that
Vinyl,
stuff, right?
Another one that's got me like following these people that only have 15, followers on Instagram, and it's just French guy that doesn't speak a lick of English, and he does all of his bottling in the farmhouse, but has his own vineyard right there, and fucking Bobby's buying him out,
Right,
and,
exactly.
and he has to go through Anvil, and then I call Anvil, and I'm like, I love this wine. They're like, well, then go back to the fucking restaurant, because I don't sell to people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God damn it, who do I have to blow to get this wine for not $78 a glass?
Right.
So as we see, like, just more and more people get excited, and I think like our generation of maybe, let's say, like beginning wine drinkers or just wine drinkers in general are getting more adventurous to try new things. So, I mean, like, do you see this increase in this type of wine getting, like, more credibility